Hello, everyone. Ba-ba. How's it going, Neo? Pietro? Welcome. So, I want to actually get through significant portion today because I do actually want to get to the DLC in good time. So I'm going to try and go through some stuff. So, in the Discord, we were sort of talking a little bit about the timeline and the different civilizations, Rao and Ould and all this stuff. So I'm going to head over to the... what's this called? High Road Cave. I'm going to head there and take a look at that. Oh, also, off-stream, I just did the little mine where we got the Roar Medallion. So, bronze medallion depicting a roaring giant. In ancient times, the giants were mortal enemies of the Erd Tree. Their bellowing roars desolated nature, triggered avalanches, and whipped up storms of flame. And I think that mortal enemies of the Erd Tree, that makes it clear that the Erd Tree was around while the giants were around. So even though there is some line about the giants being... the War of the Giants being at the very birth of the Erd Tree, I think that's maybe a more general time period. So you have the Erd Tree is born, the giants are opposed to it, America goes to war with the giants and eliminates them, which means that she must have gone to war with the giants, I think, after becoming a god. We'll probably come back to that. Did I finish Stormvale? No. So there's just a little bit left to do. We did everything except talk to Nefeli and fight Godric, so we'll come back to that. But there's still a few things to do left in Limgrave, so I want to go and look at a couple of these things. So we'll look at High Road Cave because there are the sort of ancient ruins are down in there. Also, I just like this cave. I like how innocuous it is. And also, it's one of the few caves that has like multiple different sections to it. You know, there is a lot of sort of copy pasting with the caves and catacombs and mines and whatnot, and the ones that do something more unique kind of stand out. So High Road Cave and the Ruin-Strewn Precipice is another one that has like these different sections. I really like that. We can see details of giants and Erd Tree in Smithing Stones 7 through 8. Yes, right. We probably won't get any of those soon. Do I have a torch that would be helpful? Oh, why thank you, Rafa. It's very kind of you. So, we can already see some of these ancient ruins, and this seems to be the Rao ruins, which is older than the Hornsent, because we had Hornsent scholars found... I can't remember exactly what they found, but they found something in the ruins of Rao, so they were studying it. They were already doing archaeology. Oh, come on. Okay, nothing new there. I have been thinking about... my thought process is kind of annoying because I'm thinking about things that I'm not really covering in the stream, but I have been thinking about purity and impurity and what that means, because there's a lot of interesting stuff in the DLC regarding that. So if I notice anything regarding that, I may bring up my notes again, but I don't want to get too distracted. Kind of focus on the present moment. Okay, so got a lot of wolves, and the wolves are kind of interesting because they seem to have all these different connections. Wolves are the shadows of the Empyrean, according to Vargrim's set. And then in the DLC, we got the Wolf Crest Shield, which says that wolves are the beast of the Carrion Royal Covenant, which is really weird. And then on Stormhill, we have wolves appearing out of the storm. So the storm, the moon, the Empyrean. I say Empyrean singular because that is how the description says it, which is odd. Her perspective is really unique, and I believe it was the catalyst that moved the lore hunting community forward into new territory. Well, I appreciate the sentiment. I don't know if I had that much of an impact. Although I should say, just to float my own boat a little bit, I feel like I was kind of on the right track with a lot of stuff, even though nobody really expected a lot of things that happened in the DLC. I mean, if you look at my videos, first one was about the Helpin and the Spirit Realm. The second one was about Mikola. The third one was about Radigan. Then about the Crucible. I made a lot of connections there that, you know, I wasn't right about a lot of things, but I feel like I was pointing in a pretty accurate direction in a lot of ways. So that's just me floating my own boat there. So these are the ruins. This seems to be the Rao ruins, right? I mean, all of this old structure, this is like the Rao civilization, which we see these ruins all throughout Limgrave, all throughout Caelid. Throughout... Do we see it in Liurnia, actually? We definitely see it up in the Ruinstream Precipice, so it was a massive civilization. There is a large sort of statue of a woman in the Rao ruins, which could be Marika, or it could be something preceding Marika. It's not really clear. So we've got some Kaiden soldiers. They are mercenaries who hail from the wintry north. And they have some affinity with wolves, so that would explain the wolves. Or maybe the wolves explain the Kaiden. Why they're down here is a little more difficult to say. Does this river have a name? I can't recall. There's a few little things that I haven't done here. There's the cave with patches, murk water. And then... oh, there's the Yura stuff. We should maybe talk to Yura. And there's a catacombs as well. But yeah, Kaiden soldiers... given that they hail from the wintry north, and then we have the northerner class, which is said to maybe have been descended from giants, and the way that they roar, and they're called, you know, hulking warriors, I sort of think that they are descended from giants. But what does that mean? Some relationship with the Highland warriors, given the helmet and the sort of Celtic style. So giants. I don't know if there's any clear... it's still really not clear where the giants fit into everything, because the Fell God haunts the sagas of the Horn Scent. So they seem to be opposed to the giants. Although, we don't know if the giants always worship the Fell God. So that's an interesting line of inquiry to consider. Now the golems themselves, if the golems are associated with the Rao civilization, that would be interesting, because then we have the grave birds, which are also golems, and we also have the golems in the forges, so those could all be of the same civilization. I'll have to check the forges to see what kind of architecture is there, whether it matches with the Rao or whether it seems like it's something later. The golems are also interesting because, let's see, do I have any arrows? No, it doesn't seem like it. Wait, let's see. No, I don't have the golem arrows. Because the golem arrows have basically the same effect as the storm arrows. You know, they sort of summon the storm. I'll have to look at what the... let me see how it's described. Golem arrows? What are they called? Great arrow? Golem... great bow, great arrow. Great arrow. Golems. Oh, magic arrow. Right, they also have the magical ones, which is interesting. Where's the just normal? Oh, Golem's great arrow. By the guardian. This hefty arrow is enrobed in tempestuous winds. Now, you know, that could just be, well, it's a giant arrow, and so when you fire it, it kind of, it's just like a cool effect, basically. But it would be interesting if they were connected to the storm, because then that would connect all of the stuff that we're looking at with Stormvale and, you know, who used to previously exist there, and Castle Morn, and the lone hero of Castle Morn. Um, that would connect it possibly with Rao. And there is a golem outside of Castle Morn, which is interesting. So, it seems that there was a deal between the Giants and the Fell God to win the war against America and the forces of the Erdtree. That's possible. That's possible. We seem to... There seems to be the implication that the Giants did not always have control of the mountain because they what was it? They kicked the... I think Borealis's mist says they kicked the ice dragons from the mountaintops, indicating they sort of went up to the mountaintops and then took over there. We don't really know where the Giants came from. Then there's the Titans, or I think they are basically the old gods. We have that new weapon, which is the arrowhead. It's an arrowhead, that enormous sword of the old gods. And that seems to be the right size for those enormous giants that are built into the mountaintops in Caelid. And also, Zuli pointed out that the enormous dragon at the foot of Jagged Peak is impaled with a weird sword, which would only really be the correct size for those titans. So maybe some war between the giants and the dragons long, long, long ago. Bit difficult to follow there. We got the blue dancer charm. So the dancer in blue represents a fairy who in legend bestowed a flowing sword upon a blind swordsman. Blade in hand, the swordsman sealed away an ancient god, a god that was rot itself. Now, we seem to get the indication with Rumina that rot is sort of created as a result of the flames of Mesmer's crusade. Similar to how the Formless Mother is sort of created by the Blood Fiend's ancestor being burnt. The sort of fire creating these outer gods. Whether they were actually created or whether, you know, they already sort of existed and just manifested in some way, that's not clear, but taking it at face value, that would indicate this dancer in blue and the blind swordsman were something that happened after Mesmer's crusade, which seems a little bit odd. I always sort of assumed that was a long, long time ago. And the dancer in blue, I mean, we get the dancer in red in the form of the Rana dancer, who Zuli has pointed out has basically almost the exact same facial data as Tanith, and Tanith was a dancer, so that kind of connects her to Rana. But a dancer in blue... A lot of dances going on in the DLC. We have the ascetics do all sorts of dancing moves. The Divine Beast, Sculpted Keepers, they dance and cavort. And also with the connection between Shaman Village and Dominula, you know, the festival there is all about dancing. Well, it's not all about dancing, but they do dance. So, dancing is an important theme. Are you aware of the similarities between the other Miyazaki's Nausicaa and Elden Ring? The dancer in blue in particular jumped out to me as a reference to the prophet on the Golden Fields. Actually, yes. I mean, I love Nausicaa. I've watched that movie many times. But actually, you know that Nausicaa was um, sort of V2 of Hayao Miyazaki's. I actually have it right here. Hold on. Where is it? Right. Suddenly lost it. Um, he wrote a previous story. Called Shuna. Um, well, let me show you. Shuna's Journey. And you see a lot of the Nausicaa elements there, but it's kind of interesting because the story you also see from Princess Mononoke. It's this sort of adventurer who rides this, you know, Yakul thing, um, and he has a satchel of magic golden seeds, and he goes to the land of the giants, and they have like a giant weird crucible thing. So I think there's a lot of similarities actually. Yeah, there's some of the giants. Let me see. Yeah, it's a very short little story that kind of became the basis for a lot of Nausicaa and some of Princess Mononoke. It's worth looking up. There's a Nausicaa 2 on the works, isn't there? Is that true? A second Nausicaa movie? Really? Rumors about a sequel to Nausicaa are everywhere. Huh. It's painful to return to this world. But that could just be he's returning mentally to it. Um, this seems kind of like wishful thinking to me. I think it would be better to keep Nausicaa where it is. I have no desire to do it. Yeah, I don't know about that. If there's some substantial evidence that that's happening, I don't know how I'd feel about that actually, because that is like a pretty perfect movie. And I think like that soundtrack is so good, and Hisaishi I think has kind of fallen down since then. Um, not since then. I mean, he made a few other great soundtracks, but more recent stuff is not as interesting. He really did some weird things in Nausicaa that are really neat. Um, do I still think Radigan is Godwin? Well, I don't know if I ever thought it. It's still a possibility I'm considering that Godwin's soul was put in Radigan's body. Um, so I'm just sort of putting that on the table and seeing if anything comes of it as I sort of go through all the lore again. So, number one, let's see. What do we have left? We have a death bird. Maybe we should go fight a death bird. We also have Elimer. There's an invasion there. Yura. I think let's go talk to Yura. Oops. Wasn't sure if you found any new supporting evidence or contradictions. Well, it's hard to find clear contradictions in Elden Ring just because we have so little information about anything. So I wouldn't necessarily be looking for contradictions to prove it or disprove it. It would be more about, you know, what's the most satisfying explanation for the information that we have. I mean, I feel reasonably confident that Marika used the ritual as explained in the Secret Rite Scroll in order to become a god, which means that she had a lord, and the Lord's soul required a vessel. There is a way you could make that make sense with just, like, Godfrey and Sarosh, although that doesn't... It's a little bit of a stretch in terms of the analogy with Mikola and Radahn and Moog. So, I don't know, it all just depends on, yeah, what the most satisfying explanation is there. Let's take a look at Yura. Seems to have gray eyes. Gray eyes, gray hair. Is that gray? It's kind of hard to see with the light. I think that's gray. I think that's just the firelight. Cool design on the cape. I don't know if it really matches up with anything. It could be a tree. Little metal ring. I'm not sure what that would be for. A little flute. It's kind of interesting. The spike through Midra. Yeah, it's not that close. Cool hat. Nothing really to speak of. I mean, he seems to hail from the land of reeds, although it's very different from the sort of classic samurai armor. A bit more Western. Metal greaves, metal gauntlet, metal I don't know what you call this, shoulder thingy. Those magic enemies in the DLC, what are they called? I'm not sure what you're thinking of. Pauldron. Oh, it's a pauldron. Thank you. That's a good word. Alright, let's talk to Yura.
Ah, you must be the new Tarnished. You do well to steer clear of a Gill Lake fledgling. A dragon roosts there, and it's as fearsome as it is majestic. So, unless you're mad, or wish to be burned alive, stay clear of the lake. Don't be a fool. Turn back before it's too late.
Probably the greatest voice actor in all of Elden Ring.
Don't be a fool. Turn back before it's too late.
Especially when he becomes Shiriri. So, okay, I will avoid the lake, but let's go to find Nereus. Can I get down this way? I think I can. Oh, the Inquisitors. Right, right. Well, that is the reason that Mitra is impaled that way. I don't think it's that close. I mean, you know, there are a lot of like tree and branch kind of symbols and imagery used in the game that I would be hesitant to connect them all together. So, all right. Oh, I also didn't look at the Shamshir. I should look at that.
Nigh for you and your cessblood.
So let's take a look at these guys. Oh, maybe let's wait until he's standing up. So Nereus, he is a sanguine noble. He's got the mark of Mogwin on his face. Red eyes. That makes sense. I think they're red. I don't think that's just the phantom effect. Let's see. Reduvia has a kind of crustacean look to it. I guess we'll get it in a minute, so we'll take a look at that. Eight-petaled flower design. Doesn't look like you're about to drink it. Looks like you're about to pour it on your face. Possibly gray skin? Maybe not. there's a theme with the Mogwin dynasty of sort of, it's all nobility. It's all about the new aristocracy. They're all trying to sort of present themselves as high class. Kind of mirrors, like, there's a lot of pride in it, which kind of mirrors the Luciferian parallels with Moog. And there we have Yura's sword. Nothing else to really add to that. Okay. So, the Reduvia. Let's take a look at that. So, used by the noble servants of the Lord of Blood. Is it made of metal? I guess it is. Just a really... There's a passing resemblance to the Finger Slayer blade, but I think that's probably just coincidence. Is it made of silver? That'd be interesting. Actually, with all these little, like, this filigree, it's not dissimilar from the Godskin weapons. But it's a little bit more sort of rough and not as elegant. So that may be just coincidence. But that looks silvery to me. As opposed to like the steel of this. That's steel. That's shinier. That's got more of like a, what do you call it, patina? Interesting. Kind of unrelated. What do you think happened to Moog after Radahn was revived? Well, there is that moment in the Radahn fight, once you get through the first phase, where he sort of kneels and it appears like he's being covered in blood flame, and then Mikla comes out and the blood flame is sort of quenched by this golden light, which I'm not sure whether that is... I'm not sure whether that flame is something of Radahn, because we did get that in the original trailer, Radahn sort of becoming all fiery, and his rune says that, the rune burns to resist the scarlet rot. So it could be just something about Radahn and maybe his connection to the fire giants, or it could be something related to Moog, Moog's body being there. I don't know, like, what happened to Moog's soul? Difficult to say. Difficult to say. So let's go talk to Yura again. So Yura's hunting the Bloody Fingers because of Eleonora, who was a Drake Knight, which indicates she was working for Placidusax, but somehow she got corrupted.
Ah, we meet again. To have fought Nereus and lived. You must have seen your share of battle. I am Yura, as you might recall. Hunter of Bloody Fingers, tarnished, held in thrall by Cessblood. Zealots who stalk their own. If you stay the path, you're certain to face more of them. Just remember, no kinship with their ilk remains. Their madness precludes it.
Madness.
Don't let your emotions stay your blade.
And the bloody fingers are tarnished. That's
Be on your
interesting.
way. Perhaps we will meet again.
Yep.
Be on your way. Perhaps we will meet again.
Okay, perhaps we will. So, that's out of the way. We could also go say hi to Blythe. Yeah, I mean, Consort Radon uses Blood Flame and has some horns on his forearms. I'm trying to see if I can see anything about Godfrey to suggest who was used to revive him. Yeah, that's why... That's why I was sort of going down the path of Radigan and Godwin. Just because if Godfrey was revived... I don't know, you could say Horalu maybe was killed, and then, like, Sarosh is the equivalent of Radon in that situation. No worries, Rafa. Thanks for dropping in. Yeah. Sarosh being the sort of parallel to Radon might make sense just because of the lion imagery. But I don't know, something it doesn't quite fit, because visually at least, you know, the Sarosh Godfrey comparison is like Mikla and Radon rather than Radon and Moog. Radon is in Moog's body, so I don't know, it's all a little bit different. It's different enough that I don't know if the analogy is meant to be that close or not. In any case, we'll leave Blythe for now. I think, is there anything that we need to do before Stormvale? We can come back to Blythe. We can come back to these guys. I think let's finish that up. So let's go talk to Nefeli. Good evening, my Joe. Okay. But did I not get the secluded cell? Alright, let's just go run there. So, Eleonora was a Drake Knight. She served Placidusax. I'm assuming... I actually have to check the armor for the Drake Knights then. I assume that they are serving Placidusax. Well, that would kind of make sense, because Yura warns us about dragging communion. So if the idea is Eleonora, she was working for Placidusax, killing drakes, consuming their hearts, and then somehow that led her to the Mogwin dynasty. Oh, you know, I never really looked carefully at the trolls, so let me do that. This isn't the best lighting, but let's take a look. So very weird design. Very weird. It's all like fleshy and woody. So there may be an interesting parallel there with the fire giant's hair being red and sort of indicative of some kind of curse, and the trolls who betrayed them instead have wood for hair. They have tree stuff for hair, branches. I think all of the trolls are flayed. You can clearly see their bare spines. That's interesting. Yeah, it certainly does look that way. And then we have this roots inside with a stone tablet. That would be interesting because then that might connect to the Glowmite Queen. You know, skinning gods. If the giants were gods... Well, if the titans were the old gods, then that might mean that giants could also be gods. So god skin could be giant skin. 5 toes. And 5 fingers. Howdy. This is in-depth, deep lore through, right? Yes. As you can tell, this is stream number 8, and we have not even finished Limgrave yet, so we're going pretty slow. Almost looks scaly. A little bit of gold in the eye, maybe? Yeah, the idea of them being flayed is interesting. I wonder. They've got this beautiful golden sword. Anything interesting there? No real iconography that's very suggestive. Pretty generic. I guess you could say those are sort of braids, maybe? Those hints of red on them, is that blood? Arguable. They certainly do have the appearance of being flayed. That's why the nose is that way, sort of skull-like. Hard to say whether that's just the result of, like, general decay and corruption. But that does seem like they are skinless. So skinless and sort of made of roots almost. What does Sherlock Bones mean? Oh, Sherlock Bones is my character. This guy. The detective of the lands between. Understanding bones. And bones are actually really important because with the shaman village being connected to Dominula, and then the Dominula festival being something that existed before the Erd Tree, and it involves, seemingly, according to the spirit ghost, it's the the spirit says, you know, my hide is filthy, don't skin me. So it seems to be about flaying, which would then connect to the Gloam-Eyed Queen and Godskins, perhaps. And I think Marika... Well, I think she was the Gloam-Eyed Queen, but if she wasn't the Gloam-Eyed Queen, she is deeply, deeply connected to the Gloam-Eyed Queen. So there's something about skinning that's important, and then all the celebrants use weapons made out of bone, and same with the festive grease in the DLC that's made of bone. And then you have the fallen hawks who burned the bones of their fellows in ghost flame, and that sealed their fate as underground dwellers, which is interesting. So there's something important about bones. Something important about bones. I also haven't looked at these guys. I better look at them because they breathe fire, and that kind of maybe connects them with the dragons. Let's get some distance here. So I didn't realize this was like a helmet. So they're not actually breathing fire. It's, I think this is just some sort of device which allows them to emit flames. They're just regular Stormhawks with some kind of apparatus. That's interesting. And their wings are chained. Circle in this square, that's a alchemical symbol. Actually, it's two squares on top of each other. The circle indicates what? Perfection, the divine. And then the square represents the material world. It's the four corners of the world, the four elements. But probably that doesn't mean anything here. Probably this is just cool symbols. Looks like a gravestone in their gut to me. Somehow maybe connected to Renala and the girls reborn as gravestones in the first part of her boss fight. That's right. Forgot they turned into sort of... We'll definitely be looking at that fight closely. They have those dragon flamethrowers all over the place. They turned it into another weapon for the birds. Yeah, that makes sense. So we're just going to get everybody fighting each other here. Come on. Oops. Nice. Come on. Just hit each other. Oh, crap. God damn it. Break this apart. Nice. And let's also grab this painting while we're at it. Can't believe that we're already on our way to the next Souls game. Elden Ring is over, and that's so crazy to say. But speculation isn't over. We can say that the, I mean, I think basically the FromSoft Soulsborne method of storytelling is a kind of game. It's sort of a meta game. And so that game is not over. Elden Ring will never be over for me. Whoa, glitchy. I mean, I do think, there's been some progress in a sense. There are things which over time the community sort of arrives at a consensus about certain things based on what the most satisfying explanation is. And that happened with Dark Souls, it happened with Demon Souls, and there are still things being, some people are still looking at those, but it's more sort of well understood how all of those things work, how the story and those things work. There's still mysteries and stuff. So I think that we'll get to a point where there's a better... Elden Ring is just bigger, it's more complicated, it's going to take a while for us to reach that point. And that point doesn't require solid answers, it just requires getting to a theory which is satisfying and, elegant and explains most of the major things. So I think we will get there. It may not feel like, there's a solid ending point and there will still be people arguing about certain things, but I think we'll get to a point where there's a better sort of agreed upon sense of what the story is about and what happened.
You were a fine warrior. Your only mistake was your choice of master. Let the winds lift you to a higher place.
A choice of master, meaning Godric in this case,
Well,
I guess.
Who do we have here? Tarnished, are you? Clearly not one of Godric's lot. I am Nefeli Lu. Tarnished and warrior, like you. I'm here by decree of my father. How utterly repellent this is. This grafting of Godric's ill befits a lord. He's tainted the very winds. If you intend to challenge Godric, I ask you call upon me. The winds run foul with his deeds. I'm certain father would permit me aid the fight. Apologies, but I've idled long enough. As fellow Tarnished, we must each follow our own guidance. Down whatever road takes us to the throne of Elden Lord.
It's a really nice detail that she has just a hint of a Brummy accent. So even though she says, I'm here by decree of my father, and you might assume, if you know the name Horalu at this point, which you do from the intro, that she's talking about Horalu. But actually the Brummy accent kind of connects her to Gideon, which is kind of neat.
Apologies, but I've idled long enough. As fellow Tarnished, we must each follow our own
We must
guidance.
each.
Down whatever road takes us to the
Down
throne
whatever
of Elden Lord.
road. Yeah, you can hear the little bit of that Brummy accent in there, which is really neat. That's a neat detail. There are some things about the accents that are interesting, like, Ronnie and the Carians having a Welsh accent, and also the Albinarics, well, not Latenna, but Albus has a really strong Welsh accent. So there may be something there in the accents trying to kind of connect them together. Let's take a look at it really quick. Are we sure there isn't going to be another DLC? I feel like they're done with Elden Ring. Yeah, Miyazaki, I don't think wants to continue just doing the same worlds. I feel like this is probably, with this DLC, we probably got the major beats of the story that George R. R. Martin wrote and the themes that Miyazaki wanted to explore. Even though obviously we're missing a lot of crucial details. How much influence do you think GRRM had on Elden Ring? Miyazaki said mythos, so what does that mean to you? I think he wrote all the demigods and Marika's story with Meteor and the Greater Will. Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that, I think it's pretty clear that he wrote, you know, basically like a lore manifesto of the history of pretty much everything before we get into the game. Because Miyazaki said something about like how George would be surprised by how they made the demigods into like these crazy, like Rykard turning him into a snake person and things like that. So I think it's clear that, you know, he wrote about Rykard, he wrote about the demigods, he wrote about all the history. The Shadowlands was based on his manifesto as well. So I think it's basically George R. R. Martin's story in a lot of the details. Yeah. Rodriguez's accent is Welsh too. Nothing but a craven. Is that Welsh? Nothing but a crave. It does sound kind of Welsh, yeah. I'll have to go talk to her again. I'm not recalling. Big chain is odd. Red fur. Interesting. It's also interesting that she's much more dark-skinned than Horalu. And you would assume if the Highland Warriors were like in a wintry, snowy kind of place up in the mountaintops, it wouldn't necessarily, like, this seems like she's comes from a more sunny place. Do you think he named all those characters? Yeah, I think he probably named all the characters. I've heard Cornish, but I'm not super familiar with that. Oh, it could be a Cornish accent. Cornish is weird because that's like unrelated to almost anything else in the UK. Okay, Nefeli. Then, is there anyone else that we need to... Let's just quick go to Roundtable Hold and see if there's any new dial. Oh, D should be there. We can talk to him. And Gideon is in his chambers, but I don't think we can get in yet. Oh, we can. Let's talk to Gideon. So this is a nice little chamber here. Lots of books, indicating that he is studying things.
What do you need? I have little time to spare. Oh, are you aggrieved at the notion you are but a visitant here? Then you would do well to remember the first words of grace given to you. Stand before the Elden Ring and become the Elden Lord. If those words held any meaning to you, follow the guidance of grace. Lay low the shard bearers and claim for yourself a great rune. Do so, and the doors to the round tables in the chamber will open, and you will receive the wisdom of the Two Fingers.
Okay.
Once the wisdom of the Two Fingers becomes your own, I'll impart to you a proper welcome. As a true member of the Round Table, I have high hopes for you. I'm sick and tired of them. These namby-pamby tarnished think us no more than a shelter from the rain. We've spoken long enough. I have matters to attend to.
All those beetles in the game have eyes on them, like Gideon sees all and hears all. Yeah, I do like that theory that the beetles are his, and that's his way of gathering information. I'm not sure if there's really any strong evidence for it, but It's a fun theory. Let's take a look at some of these. A shard of the shattered Elden Ring. It grants the blessing of an equipped great rune upon use, which is interesting because in the DLC we also have the Iris of Grace and the Iris of Occultation, which do the same thing. The Iris of Grace does it exactly like the rune arc, and the Iris of Occultation does it, but you lose all your other runes at the moment, which is interesting. The lower arc of the Elden Ring is held to be the basin in which its blessings pool. Perhaps this shard originates from that very arc. It's the lower arc in which the blessings pool. And that is the arc where, if we do Fia's ending, the Mending Rune of the Death Prince sort of intersects that. Life within death. Let's see. Anything else interesting here? Two Fingers have these weird mystic codes. Memory Stone, we looked at that. Nothing too interesting in these. Pretty normal looking weapons. Finger Seal. Incantations. Okay. Sacred Seal bestowed by a Finger Maiden. Kind of an interesting idea that, like, the mirror... Because this one makes you look like a normal person, whereas this one makes you look like a phantom. So it's like the mirror is sort of capturing what you are supposed to look like. Reflections. Reflections. Round table burns when the Erdtree burns, so it's connected. It's outside this world, yet still connected to what happens in the world. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Remembrances are hewn into the Erdtree. So, I think there's a strong connection between, like, memories being stored in runes and runes forming golden trees. Well, runes of golden light. So you have, like, grace, you have golden light, which then can be sort of used as ink to draw out runes, and the runes are like the story of something that happened, well, they're words, so that you can describe someone or something or some event, and then those runes can turn into trees. So the Erdtree sort of stores the memories, or stores these stories. Because when you die, your runes are dropped, and then they turn into little saplings, and that's clearly meant to parallel, like, the Erd Tree itself. So it's sort of the memories of the runes. And then you have this thing in the Eternal Cities where the slimes, if you kill them while they're in slime form, they drop rune items. But if you let them transform into the Fallen Hawk forms, then they don't drop rune items. Which kind of indicates that, like, the Fallen Hawks died and their runes were left there, and then the slimes use the runes to kind of take on the form of the Fallen Hawks. So it's sort of like saving the memory of the Hawks into this code, which you can then, you know, copy and paste into a mimic. Well, let's talk to D.
Ah, we meet again. I'm glad you took my warning to heart. Those who live in death should be left well alone. All the more should you spy a mariner among their number. Well, well. Another fool who won't listen to reason, eh? But with a prowess for weeding Deathroot. How would you like to earn the strength of beasts? If you're inclined to hunt more of those who live in death and weed their Deathroot, then I'll introduce you to Garank, the beast clergyman. I have a matter of my own to attend to, and the beast himself wishes for someone to take my place. What say you? Very well. Show me your map. I've marked the location for you, of a hidden gateway. It will lead you to Garank, the beast clergyman.
I wonder if there's any significance to the fact that Garank wanted to replace D as his weeder of Deathroot. D is such a weird situation. Is there a lore reason why D is so cool? Good voice actor, really unique armor, weird mystery as to, like, how he exists in this weird state of being two people. And then that kind of hints at some of the other mysteries about doubles. Can't stand him. Let's go talk to Garank. That's a good idea. And then I think we'll do Godric. Millicent's voice actor is very good too. Yeah, I mean, Elden Ring voice actors, I mean, this is always a strong suit of FromSoft. Really the only one that I think is bad is Muriel. So, the way gates are potentially connected to the Ul civilization because of the four belfries. They may have been created by them. Although who knows if there's really meant to be a deep lore reason. You don't like Muriel? Personally, I find Nepheli very dull, but the rest are great. Oh, Muriel's awful. Muriel's a terrible voice actor. Oh, what is it? He just sounds so bored, and I think he's the worst one. So, we are in Caelid. We can look at a couple things here. Let's first take a look at this guy. A plume of white hair. Similar to Malekith, but also similar to a lot of things. Two faces melded together. So despite it being a gargoyle, I think this indicates it was a living person, or two living people at one point. Have the sword has a kind of crucible-y design. Or, well, kind of caduceus design. Corpse wax binding them together, maybe? Yeah, we'll have to take a look at the normal gargoyle. And they're called Blackblade Kindred, right? As in related to the Blackblade? Right? Well, I don't want to trigger him, but... that looks vaguely similar to the Banished Knight decorations, like on their shield, but that may be a bit of a reach. Let's see. If wings. Yeah, I think we'll have to look at the regular gargoyles to get a better sense of them. It's a really weird sort of torso piece. Are those supposed to be bones? I can't really tell what that is. Brand of sacrifice on his sword. Yeah, I don't know how meaningful that symbol is. It's not like very distinct and clear. It's a little similar to the Glomide Queen, like the Godskin symbol. Why is there a Blackblade Kindred guarding Rolled? Yeah, there's a Blackblade Kindred, and there is a... there's all the vulgar militiamen who are working for Malekith as well. These appear to be gravestones. And this is all very Farum reminiscent architecture, and we have the Farum Great Bridge here, so that would indicate that this was once connected to Farum. So we see this pot with the tree coming out in the Farum architecture, such as the ruins that are lying over Limgrave. And of course the dome, sort of we've got the three there. Lion head. Tree with beasts coming out of it. Some similarities with the Divine Tower architecture, as we will see in a bit. And importantly, we cannot see Farum from the ground. We can only see it if we're at the isolated Divine Tower or in Farum itself. It does not appear in the sky otherwise. It's not even loaded into the game. There is also this very significant waterfall here, which is like cutting off the sea from the inner part of the map. So clearly, I think connected to Farum Azula at one point in time. Let's go inside and take a look at that. So inside we have beastmen sprung up. The Blackblade Kindred reminded me of the Winged Scythe just now, and the White-Winged Maidens, who are Death's envoys. One of their attacks also looked like the weapon skill. Yeah, there's like Vacuum Slice. I don't think Vacuum Slice mentions light, though, which I think is more... with the Winged Scythe, I think the thing being about this divine light, but it's not connected to the Erdtree, and in fact, it actually prevents you from using the Flask of Crimson Tears, or either of the flasks. I think that's kind of important. This place does look like it must have been built here, which is odd. And there we get the same statues. Yeah, so this is all Farum architecture. I don't think it's that odd as long as you assume that Farum was once attached to the ground, so it was not always in the sky. Not the Vacuum Slice, just one of the attacks where they fly up and swing down at you horizontally. True, but that could just be like cool anime move. That might not be connected. There may be a connection, I don't know. So let's take a look at... Oh, and here we have blue cloths with golden filigree, which I maybe want to compare these to like the Bellerat veils that cover the buildings. A similarity to Godwin's robe and Marika's dress, so that may be related. And then we have, let's go inside so he stops glitching out. It looks like it's separate is what I mean. It doesn't look like anything that has broken off, and there isn't much else Farum-like in main landmass. Well, we'll go around and look at the back after this, but let's just take a look at Malekith first. Well, I should say Geraint. So we have there the red gem in which the Rune of Death is housed. Sealed within his flesh. He's got 5 fingers, 5 claws. Malekith, also a great voice actor. So let's listen to him talk.
I smell it. Death. Feed it me. Tarnished. Bring more death. I shall grant thee eye and claw. Feed me
kind of sounds like Shere Khan from the Jungle Book.
I shall grant thee eye and claw. Feed me more.
So let's take a look at these items now. So we've got the Beast Eye. Claw-marked Stone Eye received from Garank Beast Clergyman. The murky violet iris writhes as if alive. And it's got sort of 3 claw marks on it. I think this has got to be Malekith's eye because the purple eye is also shared by Blythe. Which would make sense because they're both shadowbound beasts. So, and that would kind of like, you know, he clawed his eye out. That kind of makes a lot of sense, I think. How that connects to Melina and the Frenzied Flame ending, not entirely clear. Sacred Seal, also marked with 3 claws. And it's kind of interesting that it's 3 claws, even though they have 5 fingers. 3 claws being more aggressive, more beastly, connected to the 3 fingers, maybe. It's about wrath. Oh, in 1.0 it is Malekith's eye? Oh, okay. Really? That's interesting. I didn't realize that I missed that. Gouged out eye of Malekith himself. Well, there we go. Ba-ba-ba. Incantation taught by Garank. It is said that in the time before the Erd Tree, stones were the first weapons of the beasts who had gained intelligence. Yeah. It's made of stone, though. I don't think Malekith is made of stone. Well, there is that thing about the Path of Stone. I think it's in the Beast Champions set. The beasts, their eyes and ears covered, represent an oath. See nothing, hear nothing, doubt nothing, and carry on along the path set in stone. So maybe something about that, the path set in stone, you see with a stone eye. I don't know. I don't know. We also got the Shamshir, but I don't think there was anything there. Although it is odd that Millicent wields a Shamshir. What an ugly sword. Okay. Let's go outside and check out the back of the sanctum. So it's a much larger... It's a much larger structure. Very odd. Big roots here. I wonder, great tree roots? I mean, I haven't really explored this possibility too far because it's just so open-ended, but the idea of, like, different worlds being phased together is not a crazy one to me. Because of how you have things like this where the rock, it's like this giant structure, but then there's this rock just phased into it, and it's kind of similar to what you see with the Divine Towers. Like, why is there rock all the way up there? And that would kind of, I don't know, there's something about like Yggdrasil connecting the different realms, and you know, trees, when they petrify, they turn to stone. I don't know, something along those lines. And all the ancient ruins of Rao being like in the rock, like well deep into it. Like, how did all that rock get there? I don't know. It's not like I can't really take that anywhere. But you know, in Dark Souls 3, we did have like this convergence of all these different lands as time was coming to an end. And it was kind of a similar thing of like all the different worlds are kind of merging into one. So the idea of maybe Farum wasn't connected to the ground. Maybe it was always in the sky. Maybe it was just some different world, and then somehow it like kind of merged with this one. I don't know. It's kind of a wacky theory, but it's just something I've had in the back of my mind. Well, let's go fight Godric. So, what do we have left in Limgrave? There's the Lindell Tower. I don't know if we want to do that, actually. Oh, there's talking to Blythe and Shifra and Darwill. Fighting Agil, Patches, Catacomb, Deathbird. Yeah, none of these are really vital. I do want to do the Stranded Graveyard at some point. Did I go to Selen? Yeah, that was one of the earlier bits. Oh, we didn't go to the Selen's body, but we'll come back to that when we do our quest a bit later. World phasing together reminds me of Final Fantasy IX, where Terra and Gaia kind of fuse. There's also the Ilfa tree. Yeah, I mean, it's not an unheard of idea. I mean, also in Berserk, sort of a fusion of the spirit realm and the real world, and that is signified by the giant twisty world tree. So I mean, I don't know if there's really much information to support it, but part of the reason that I haven't really gone full in on that idea is because it feels a little bit like a cop-out, because then you could kind of explain why all these different civilizations are like seemingly almost unconnected, like the beastmen and the dragons versus the giants versus, I don't know, Rao. Like, there's so little connecting them, they almost seem like just totally different worlds. I don't know. And it is called The Lands Between, but it would just be like, it would be an easy way out, in a way, so I feel like I don't want to go there unless there's some strong evidence to support that, because otherwise then it feels like I'm kind of cheating. So let's summon Nefeli. Could it be America's ideal world fracturing because the Elden Ring is fracturing? Yeah, something like that. Like, I don't know, the lands between... It's the world built upon the Erd Tree, but then you have the Shadow Realm, which is separated out, and you have the Shadow Tree, which is like two intertwining things. Like we know that there is something regarding the nature of the world that is beyond just this being an island, right? Because we literally have this other world, the Shadowlands, right? And we have Round Table Hold existing outside of this world. So there are like, I don't know how you describe it, like there are different dimensions or whatever. There's also Everjails, like, so there is this quality of being able to go to different places that are not, it's not just physical distance. And also, you know, Renala's boss fight and the Elden Beast boss fight. So there's like other layers of reality. So it's not a crazy idea to think that maybe, you know, multiple different worlds could be merged together, fractured. I don't know. It's just hard to find like any evidence that would actually strongly support that. Okay, let's do this.
Mighty dragon, thou'rt a true born heir. Lend me thy strength, O kindred. Deliver me unto greater heights. Well. A lowly tarnished. Playing as a lord. I command thee, kneel! I am the lord of all that is golden.
So let's get a good look at him. So we mentioned the weird, like, left eye being half closed. My name isn't Neil, mate. Yeah. 2 braids. I wish we could get this axe. I would use this axe. Double-bladed axe like Godfrey's. Which we actually don't get any double-bladed axes except for this one, and then in the DLC, the Mesmer Soldier's axe is double-bladed. We've got the Lion Sigil. Something Center Tarnish said made me think the Shadowlands was the real/original world, and everything else was fabricated by America after getting the Elden Ring. That's an interesting idea. 6 fingers. The same sigil of the lion on axe is the same lion from Grafted Blade? Yes, and I think the beast crest. Yeah. Well, actually, let's see. This is different from the beast crest. Maybe we can... Yeah, this is the same sigil. And the same sigil here. On his cloak. The Duelist Great Axe is also kind of double-bladed. I guess one blade is slightly larger than the other, so don't know if that counts. Yeah, that's true. Right, it's got the little one. I mean, in Ashes of Ariandel, you had the... you had... What were they called? You had that group of soldiers who I think was basically the proto-Elden Ring people. It was this sort of Celtic, you know, Danish kind of group. They had double-bladed axes like this. They worshipped a tree, a spirit tree. I feel like a lot of it came from that. Any other little details here? Caduceus with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Beast is also on the fortified manor. Correct. And we have the dragon here, who Godric calls a trueborn heir and kindred. Bird feathers. And also, what impaled it? How did it get impaled there? That's a big question. Well, let's just continue to fight. He uses the power of storms. Hello, little stamp. I'll leave this cutscene.
truest of dragons. Lend me thy strength. Forefathers, one and all! Bear witness!
Any lore reason he was waiting to graft it if this is all that it took? I don't know. I mean, he might have been like literally about to, because he's looking at the dragon when we come in on him. Oops. And the fella's gonna die. Maybe he just didn't want to give up his hand. Oops. It's like the opposite of Godfrey. Godfrey binds Sarash's body and soul to temper down his might, while this dumbass defiles his kindred, ripping off its head and making it his own power. Yeah, I think there's also maybe a bit more of a parallel also with, like, if Godfrey is a Highlander, the Highlanders, they wanted to, they thought there was nothing better than subjugating a great beast. And you see that with Godfrey and Sarash, I think. I think Godfrey had to beat Sarash first. Oops. Better not die. That would be annoying. And then you also see that with Godwyn, actually, because he subjugates Fortisax and then, like, makes it his own. Fortisax now kind of lives within him. So I think there's a parallel between all of them. Like Godfrey and Sarash, he beats him, and then Sarash sort of helps him out. And then same thing with Godwyn and Fortisax, and then this guy with this random Drake. Although it is interesting that it's a Drake, because... Oops. Because he says, truest of dragons, trueborn heir, as if to indicate that, like, what, Bale's line is actually the true... I don't know.
I am the Lord of all that is golden, and one day we'll return together to our home, bathed in rays of gold.
Is the kindred like an equals and friends thing, or did Godfrey/Godwyn bonk and have babies with a dragon? That's possible. We know that like Lanciox took human form to commune with the ancient dragon knights. It's a Drake because the banished knights who serve him were dragon slayers. But that would indicate that they're trying to kill the Drakes. That wouldn't indicate why Godric would call him like a trueborn heir. Godric is kind of tragic. Like, I imagine he was around for peak Golden Order when everyone prospered. Yeah, and I think basically Rogier says as much. So we got a couple new items here. A feeble man sought power through the grotesque act of grafting. Yep, well, that doesn't tell us anything new. And we have Godric's Great Rune, and it is devoid of any benediction. Our home bathed in rays of gold. Shaman Village. That's an interesting connection. That's an interesting connection. Huh. Bale being Godwin's child and the first Drake as a result would be quite the twist. Whoa, that would be pretty weird. But would that make sense? We had to have had, assuming that Borealis is indicative of who the Ice Drakes were, we had to have had Ice Drakes before the war with the Giants. Now, is it possible Godwin was around long before then? Yeah. Part of the problem with Elden Ring is just the time scale is so massive. And, you know, the information that we get gives us the impression that everything is sort of compressed. But actually, I think it's like there's like thousands of years. All right, America's been around for thousands of years. Something like that. You know, I don't know exactly how much, but it's a long, long time. So it's hard to, you know, and there's just periods of time that we just don't. We might get 1,000 years where there's like 3 item descriptions that reference it, and then another 1,000 years where there's like 500 item descriptions that reference it. So it feels like, comparatively, it's like 1,000 plus 10 instead of 2,000 years, if that makes sense. I have yet to see a timeline I think is correct. Very difficult in any FromSoft game to make a timeline, but this one is the hardest. Yeah. Heart description. Wait, let's see. He relates to the Drake because the Drakes are a lesser form of the ancient dragons. He is from the golden lineage, but treated as unworthy. Heart description says biatrial. Human hearts are biatrial. That's a wild theory, but I kind of like it. I mean, I have been sort of nursing this idea about a dragon's blood lineage. Also, no one really aging or dying during that time. Yeah, also that, because normally if you get a history of thousands of years, you're talking about generations upon generations instead of like, no, one person might exist for that whole time, and then they also might have their generations upon generations existing simultaneously. So it becomes very confusing. I think there was a huge amount of time between the ancient dragons and Marika's order. Yeah.
What a pathetic excuse for a lord you were. Craven to the bone. pushing me about like that? And after all that grafting, where did that get you? Look down on me, would ya? Godric, you filthy slug. Feel it. Feel it. Feel my bloody wrath.
Almost looks like he's made out of wood. Hmm. And now his face looks just like a regular commoner. Interesting. If I remember correctly, Radahn and Mohg are the only two demigods who do not seem to survive in some form after you kill them. Like here we have Godric's body. When you beat Morgott, his body is there. Rykard's snake body is still there. Rennala, you don't even really kill. Melania's bloom is there. There's always like something that kind of survives of them. And Radahn and Mohg are the only two that don't have that. As far as I can remember. His face looks like Morgott's face after we beat him and he transforms. No, I think this is just like the generic commoner face. It's like what Gold Mask looks like. It's really what Gostock kind of looks like. Slightly different, but Morgott's face is a little bit different. Mohg disappears but speaks while disappearing.
Oh, hello there. This weasel was... Godric was always looking down on me. He got what he bloody deserved thanks to you. I tell you though, what goes around comes around. He had an ugly heart, an uglier countenance, and met the ugliest of ends, eh?
Radahn gets eaten after his fight by Jarbro? Yeah, I suppose that's true. I suppose that's true. That's actually kind of interesting. Because you do have, like, the Shard of Alexander. When you beat him on Farum Azula, it says there's, like, red hair in it. Right? I wonder if that has to do with Radahn's soul being... Because there's a question, like, why would you need Mohg's body in Radahn's soul? Why not just Radahn's body? Now, maybe it's because of the rot or something, but... I don't know, it's an interesting idea. Furl calling finger remedy. There's never much explanation on why the two fingers are all dead. Right. Perhaps Mohg's body was used because of his omen horns. I think those kind of work as antennae to draw in spirits. Yeah. That's an interesting idea. That's a really good idea. Also, Mohg is from the golden lineage, so his blood might be important too. That's also a good point. That's also a good point. horns. The ancestral spirit followers, right? Horns are like the sign of what? Of being closer to spirits. I'll have to look at some of those descriptions. So that would make sense. And with the horn scent, they're trying to reach the heavens, right? Build a tower to reach the heavens. Hmm. Lion. We have Godfrey and Sarash. Sarash has a kind of... That looks like a very basic version of that tree coming out of the pot. Symbol. Here we have Godfrey. Double-bladed axe. Very Celtic looking. Different from the Godric axe. Yeah. Yeah. He's also got a little sword here. Without a hilt. It's almost sort of Roman style. More of a dagger. Let's actually, I want to get some light here. There we go, that's a bit better. A lion with a crown. A shield with some kind of sigil on it that's too hard to make out. Is that a lion sigil? Kind of hard to see. Damn, Godfrey's just the chaddest of chads. I'm struggling to find something on horns with ancestral followers, but I did want to state that they don't like metal, and I believe something says they don't like words, doesn't it? Yes. The horned folk who eschew letters and metalworking. And they're versed in distinctive spiritual arts. Ancestral followers keep their distance from the Erd tree. The ancient horn is imbued with the power of ancestral spirits. kind of interesting that they have like an axe that has teeth, because the whip used against the shamans has teeth on it. In the ancestral spirit-worshipping faith, these are considered envoys' wings made to reap the lives of beings which experience no sprouting. And that winged great horn looks kind of similar to the wings of the death birds. There's definitely a very close similarity between the ancestral followers and the horn scent, although I don't think they are the same. What's up, Jose? Yeah. So we just look up, like, horns. There's a lot of stuff about horns. Oh. A number of new growths bud from the antler-like horns of the fallen king, each glowing with light. Thus does new life grow from death, and from death one obtains power. That always seemed like a very suggestive line. Yeah. Yeah, I do like that idea of Moog's body being needed because it has horns. I like that idea. So Melina seems surprised that Bach was born of a mother, but then where did all the other demigods come from? I thought we knew the parentage of all the demigods. I mean, with Melina's dialogue there, it could also... It might not mean necessarily that she was... Like, she wasn't born of her own mother. It might mean that the person who bore her didn't act like a mother. That she was, like, abandoned in some way. It's like, is that what it means to be born of a mother? Like, is that how your mother treats you? Because she's talking about how, like, Bach misses his mother and his mother loved him. Something like that. So it could be more about, like, that her mother didn't treat her well, essentially. So we got the Shabriri grape, which is an eyeball of the infirm. The infirm. I think the ancestral spirits are why Limgrave is so green and animal heavy. That's a neat idea. This is probably my favorite Vista in the base game. Just Liurnia in general. But Melina has observed the lands between for a long time. Are you sure she wouldn't know what a normal relationship between mother and child is like? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, she might just be remarking upon the fact that, like, I mean, also remember her memory is kind of gone, so, like, her purpose is long ago lost. If her purpose was to be sacrificed, then maybe she feels, you know, rejected or abandoned by America, which would kind of tie in with all the abandonment stuff. All I'm pointing out is that it doesn't necessarily mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that Melina wasn't born of a mother. In like a literal sense, it may be more about like she was born of someone who wasn't very motherly. When you go to the Three Fingers, Melina says birthing continues. Who the fuck is being born currently in the lands between besides Octopus? Yeah, in 1.0, the turtleneck meat, this is cut. It says that, like, basically people don't have sex anymore. But I don't know. Maybe it's the difference between being born and created. America might have created Melina by separating an aspect of herself. Yeah, and that was my theory before the DLC. I'm not sure how I feel about it now, because she seems to be Mesmer's younger sister, but also Mesmer has a lot of connections to the Godskin Apostles, who seem to be more sort of created. And then there's all this stuff with the Newman and the Nox and the slimes and the Eternal Cities and how that relates to America, which I still don't understand how that fits in with all the stuff about the shamans. So yeah, I'm not really sure where I stand now. So here is Hayeda. Blindfolded.
Hello? Is someone there? My name is Hayeta, and I'm journeying in search of the distant light. If I might be so bold as to ask, would you donate any Shabriri grapes in your possession to me? My eyesight has been weak since birth, you see. I can't tell which way I'm supposed to go next, but when I eat one of those grapes, I can feel a distant light in the back of my eyes. It will lead me to my true duty as a finger maiden. Oh, many thanks to you. Now I can feel the distant light once more.
Repeated
You
motif
are
of
most kind
blindfolding
indeed. May the blessing
of
of the
obscured
fingers be upon
eyes.
you. You are most kind indeed. May the blessing of the fingers be upon you.
But which fingers?
You are most kind. May the blessing...
And now if we go back to here. Yeah, I mean, the pot ladies in the DLC are blindfolded, and so here is Irina. She is here. Which is weird. Oh, I guess I never came back and... Did I talk to Edgar? I can't remember now. The weird Oh Mother statues have eyes obscured by their hair, I think. Yeah, that's what I was also going to mention. Yeah, the shaman statues have blindfolded eyes. We never see America's eyes. I guess we see them in the statues, but that one sorcerer class is also blindfolded. Yeah, the errant sorcerers. And I believe Wilhelm uses primeval sorcery, is that right? I can't remember now. So let's head back to Round Table. Get all this good lore. So, first of all, hello, Roderica.
Greetings. Nice to see you again. My name is Roderica. I should have told you sooner. Isn't this place impressive, though? The Round Table Hold, covert quarters of the Two Fingers, and gathering place of champions who vie to become Elden Lord. I never knew the guidance bestowed upon us Tarnished had such fantastic roots, although it's all a bit much for me, in truth. I'm still looking for my own purpose. It's all a bit much for... I'm still looking.
Now, look at you. Those eyes tell a story of a challenger who's felled his mark. Fine and well. Now lay out your arms.
Lay out your arms.
The girly boy here. She's crestfallen and can scarcely swing a blade. But she has a gift for spirit tuning. I saw another one like her long ago. Their eyes share the same hue.
Spirit tuning. I still think the sore/scar seals are Marika and Radigan's actual eyes. Yeah.
It's all a bit much for... I'm still looking.
Oh.
You're telling me I possess some kind of gift? I don't believe you. But if I do have this talent, and goodness knows it would be my first, I suppose I should try to hone it, shouldn't I? I'll ask Master Hugh to teach me. Certainly he does appear intimidating and holds no love for us Tarnished. But I know he's trapped here at the Round Table Hold. So, I can tell. He's a gentle soul underneath it all.
What about Hugh talking to us? Do you think he's an anomaly, or do you think Misbegotten have devolved and once were a part of society? I mean...
I do have a talent for spirit. I suppose I'll ask Master...
Yeah, good. To ask him to teach you. I think the Misbegotten Ashes say that, you know, they're held to be a punishment for making contact with the Crucible. So that would kind of indicate that they were not always that way. I kind of think, I mean, there's those giant, the larger shadow guys in Bellerat, and they wield an iron cleaver, and I think they also have chains, you know, so they're like, you know, slaves similar to the Misbegotten. So I kind of think that maybe the Misbegotten are similar to that, or they came from that or something. But it's also weird because then we had the Rusted Anchor, which seemed to indicate that the Misbegotten were tarnished. Although, it's possible that they just picked this up. I don't know. Recently, someone pointed out that Roderica is probably a Newman, and the other spirit tuner was Marika, and I felt stupid not having thought of that myself. Why would she be a Newman? I'm not sure what the reasoning there would be.
Back already, no matter. The girl. What about her? Are you out of your mind? Who'd stay with an ugly brute who only knows how to smith? Absurd. Besides, she'd never agree to it. I refuse to believe it. I don't doubt you, but I know when something's too good to be true.
It would be weird if America's eyes weren't gold. Yeah, but they might also change. I don't know. Like, if gold was invented or created at some point, then maybe they weren't always gold. Mostly just the idea that the other spirit tuner was America and the similarity in their names. America, Rodrika. That feels pretty loose. I mean, also the spirit tuner being America would be strange because, like, Hugh talks about the spirit tuner as he's indebted to a spirit tuner. But then he's, like, very fearful of America and he's trapped here, so it doesn't seem like he's making weapons just because he's indebted to America. But maybe. It's possible. I don't agree that she's a Newman, but notably she does come to the land between from somewhere else and she's not a Tarnished. Rodrika is a Tarnished, yeah. She is Tarnished. It says in her... actually I might go back and get that red shawl.
Ah, we meet again after all. I apologize for any offense given by my bearing, but I'm quite unable to move, you see. So, what do you need? Ah, you defeated Godric and claimed yourself a great rune. Looks like we both got what we wanted out of Stormvale, didn't we? Well done, friend. Something to mark the occasion. Go on, take it. As you might have guessed, I still can't move. My fighting days are behind me. No need to be polite. I've no use for it anymore. Ah, so you've met Dee. Dee is an old friend. We found ourselves journeying together for a time, bound by our exploration of death. But our paths have since diverged, never again to cross. Though that's hardly an uncommon fate for two friends.
Interesting that Dee was also exploring death. Because obviously now he's sort of weeding Deathroot out, but I wonder if maybe he was more just sort of curious about death. And I kind of theorized at one point that maybe there was something about that is the reason for him and, like, Darian and Devon being kind of split. Because they never stand together. One is always above ground, one is below ground. I don't know.
Dee was telling me that he discovered the mark of the centipede. The centipede is an ancient symbol of the curse mark. As long as whoever finds and uses it is not nefarious by nature, then we may be able to form an alliance. If only I could speak to them in person. And if they were like you, all the better.
Radigan statues in Bellum and Pilgrimage have golden centipedes. Golden centipede is the symbol of the curse mark. That's another bit of evidence for some connection between Godwin and Ratigan. Hello, Miyazaki-san. Can we please have a DLC where Dee and Rashir make up? Please and thank you. Yeah, I want a DLC just about the adventures of Rashir and Dee.
The misshapen corpse under Stormvale. That is a sacred relic of the Black Knives plot, as that famed night of assassination is known. It happened during the golden age of the Erd Tree, long before the shattering of the Elden Ring. Someone stole a fragment of the Rune of Death from Malekith, the Black Blade, and on a bitter night, murdered Godwyn the Golden. That was the first recorded death of a demigod in all history, and it became the catalyst. Soon, the Elden Ring was smashed, and thus sprang forth the war known as the Shattering. I once wished to become a scholar, you see. I've spent many an hour scouring the archives for knowledge of that fateful plot. The world has grown crooked, and if you intend to put it to rights, you'd better understand what happened to make it this way. And that thing is to blame for the shape I'm in now. I urge the utmost caution. Don't disturb the corpse more than necessary.
It was a sacred relic. Not necessarily a good thing. Not necessarily a good thing, although that's an interesting interpretation. It's an interesting interpretation. I wish we could disturb the corpse. You can. If you hit it, then it summons rancor spirits. Hello.
Are you that new tarnished? You've done well. I am Enya the Finger Reader. I interpret the words of the fingers, envoys to the greater will. Look there. The fingers tremble to welcome you, Shardbearer. Let their wisdom wash over you.
Great Elden Ring, root of the Golden Order, anchor of all lands, giver of grace, wellspring of all joy. Until it was shattered, the tragic corruption of the Order has taken its toll. Across the realm, life lies in ruin, fallen to pieces. Foul curses and misery spread, unabating. But the greater will has not abandoned the realm, nor the life that inhabits it. So it is that the Tarnished are guided by grace, called to act. Brave Tarnished, your great rune is a handsome shard of the Elden Ring. Seek another of its kind, to become Elden Lord and restore the Golden Order.
Let the words of the fingers guide you.
She has all these bells on her staff, and I think I saw bells on that symbol on Hayata's robes. Interesting. And I think this is, again, going back to spirit, sort of calling memories, calling spirits using sound, because, like, that's how bell bearings, we can get the items, we can sort of recall the items of that person, and then Enya is able to turn the remembrances into weapons and spells, sort of powers. So there's something about sound sort of recalling things.
Well, I see. A remembrance of gold has found its way into your possession. gods and even the creator of the champions are hewn by the Earth Tree upon their end into remembrances. They are valuable indeed. These remembrances yet house the power of their former masters. And should you wish to wield that same power, well, I will lend you the strength of the fingers. Do not recoil from my offer. The fingers guide us all. And you, Tarnished, you are here to take, are you not?
Yeah, it's an interesting little weird circle here. It almost feels like... she's a prisoner? That's a bit of a stretch, but almost kind of looks like a shackle. Reminiscent of Corin's wheel. Yeah, it could be that as well.
Ah, great runes are the stuff of demigods. The children of the goddess, Queen Marika. She who is vessel of the Elden Ring. Tainted by the strength of their runes, her children warred, but none could become Elden Lord. And so grace was extended to your kind, the Tarnished. Listen, the fingers speak.
The greater will has long renounced the demigods. Tarnished, show no mercy. Have their heads. Take all they have left.
Indeed. But remember one thing. The demigods are each and all the direct offspring of Queen Marika. Godric the Grafted was but a distant relation, the runt of the litter. His divine blood sorely diluted. Ah, the chill tainted and the great turn in the demigodric run.
Okay.
Now go forth. Let the words of the fingers guide you.
Each and all the direct offspring of Queen Marika. You'd get that bit of dialogue about Godric even if you killed a different demigod? I mean, I think she's just saying... I mean, the point of what she's saying is that, like, don't be hasty. Don't get cocky, essentially. Like, you killed Godric, but he was the weakest of the bunch. These are the... You know, they're demigods. Godric was the weakest of them. So the fact that you killed him... Like, don't be thinking that you're hot shit, essentially.
You've received the wisdom of the two fingers, have you not? Then, just as promised, I bid you welcome. As a true member of the Round Table, I am known as Gideon Ofnir. As a Tarnished who wishes to stand before the Elden Ring and become Elden Lord, I am accumulating knowledge. To be all-knowing. You now belong to a select group of fellows. As such, I ask that you remain constant. You'll be after more great runes now, eh? Then as your fellow, allow me to divulge a little knowledge. The inheritors of the great runes, the Shard Bearers. We of the Round Table know the location of 5 of them. including the one you defeated. Godric the Grafted, Lord of Stormvale. General Radahn, who fought Melania and her rot to a standstill in the Caelid Wilds. Praetor Rykard, Lord of the Volcano Manor of Mount Gelmir. Morgoth the Grace-Given, Veiled Monarch and Lord of Lame Dell. And Renala, Queen of the Full Moon, ruler of Rhea Lucaria's Academy. You'll still be after more great runes, won't you? So, Godric the Grafted, Lord of Stormvale. Despite being the blood of Godfrey, first Elden Lord, he's a grotesque old fool grasping for power. His castle lies upon the cliff to Limgrave's northwest, but I suspect you know that well enough already. General Radahn, the famed Red Lion and Scourge of the Stars, is a ferocious warrior. He fought Melania and her rot to a standstill in the Caelid Wilds to Limgrave's east. And now Caelid has been engulfed by the Scarlet Rot. Even approaching the region is no mean feat. I've heard survivors of Radahn's army are still in the wilds, staving off the rot with fire. And if it's true, I suspect Radahn is still there as well, in Caelid. Though, I doubt he much resembles his former self anymore.
But he doesn't even know if Radahn's army is out there. I was thinking maybe something with Gideon is like, what, he's Gideon the All-Knowing. He's got the eyes and ears. And yet, like, he's not out in the world. He's just studying at a table. So it's like he's kind of like a academic in his ivory tower. He's reading all this knowledge, but he doesn't actually know anything about what's going on in the world, in a way. It's kind of ironic.
Praetor Rykard is the Lord of the Volcano Manor on Mount Gelmir. He is a ruthless justiciar who commands a company of inquisitors, reviled for his serpentine demeanor. The volcano, Mount Gelmir, lies in the west of the Altus Plateau, the realm of the Erd Tree. It was the stage of the most appalling battle in the entirety of the Shattering. Rykard has committed the grave sin of blasphemy, marking himself as an enemy never to be forgiven. Morgoth the Grace-Given is Lord of Leyndell, the capital city. It lies at the foot of the Erd Tree, in the east of the Altus Plateau. But the Two Fingers forbid us from venturing there, until we've acquired enough great runes to repair the Elden Ring.
Which is
Set
2,
your sights
apparently.
elsewhere for the time being. The Veiled Monarch can wait. The Academy of Rhea Lucaria lies to Limgrave's north, towering over the mist-laden lands of Liurnia. Renala is queen of the Carian royals, who govern the Academy. But Renala herself is no demigod. Her beloved Radagon left her to become Queen Marika's second husband, taking the title of King Consort. The Great Rune dwells within the amber egg that was Radagon's gift to her.
A recusant invader carries Gideon's sigil, the one who invades in front of the Limgrave Coliseum. Right. And you find his armor in Rykard's boss room.
You again. I thought you'd receive a summons to the Round Table. Nefeli Lu. We met at Stormvale. I'm glad to see you here. I have something for you. I found it in Godric's grafting grounds. You defeated him. You should have it. Make good use of it. I don't intend to make a habit of scavenging corpses.
And this is related to the storied sword of Castle Morn.
Ah, yes. I wonder if you've met my foster father. He's in his study. The room Ensha's guarding just over there. If you haven't already, I advise you introduce yourself. Father is leader of the Round Table. I'm sure talking to him will be worth your while. It's about time I headed off. I'll see you again, warrior, should the fates deign it.
Why is Morgoth called the Grace-Given? I was wondering if maybe that was a way of preserving his identity. So, you know, there was this cut thing about this, like, nobleman in Lendel who had sort of discovered that Morgoth was actually an omen. And it's, like, this horrible thing because, like, oh, the omen are impure, right? So he calls him, you know, he's the veiled monarch, insinuating that no one actually ever sees him. So I was wondering if he called himself the Grace-Given in order to kind of present this image of like, oh yes, the Lord of Lendel. He's the Morgoth the Grace-Given. He's this wonderful monarch of Lendel. Just in order to kind of preserve this illusion that he was, what, I don't know, a normal guy. Well, not more than a normal guy, like a, you know, someone in America's and the Erdtree's good graces. I think Morgoth is innately graceless since he's Omen, but he was given grace through merit. He wasn't born with it like Golden Ones. But there is that line about Morgoth that, like, I don't think he was given grace because, what is it? Is it in Morgoth's Great Rune? No. Remembrance of... Where is it? Remembrance of the Omen King. Though born one of the graceless Omen, Morgoth took it upon himself to become the Erdtree's protector. He loved not in return, for he was never loved, but nevertheless love it he did. That, to me, kind of implies that the Erdtree, like, it didn't... you know, he was not loved by the Erdtree, essentially. He was never graced by it. He still became the protector despite the fact that the Erdtree did not sort of... It was not reciprocal. Lately I've been playing with the idea that since people can't see grace anymore, they have no idea who has grace and who doesn't.
If I suppose I should... I'll ask Matt.
Yeah, please do that. I suppose he was released from the Omen Curse when he died. Yeah, I don't know if the golden weapons are all created by grace. To me, they seem like some kind of analog for the Carrion sword sorceries. But I'm not sure. So, now that that's done, I think I'm going to end pretty soon. About 5-10 minutes. But let's just go talk to Blythe and then I think head to Shifra, and I think we might do Shifra next stream. Isn't grace reflected in your eyes? I assumed people with golden glowing eyes had grace. Yeah. Well, there's a difference between having grace and seeing the guidance of grace, I think. Really? Can you stop? Okay.
Who goes there? Carly sent you, did he? Ever the bloody busybody. Maybe to him you don't seem so strange.
The name's Blythe. I'm looking for a man who goes by Darrowell. He fled somewhere nearby. Or so I've heard. Come tell me if you find him before I do. I can offer you ample reward. Darrowell is nothing but a traitor, and in need of a fitting end to his tale. Darrowell, and in need of...
We can see the guidance of grace, yet we are supposed to be graceless. Yet Ennia says greater will extended grace to us when the demigods failed. Yeah. Oh, come on. That's a ridiculous hitbox. I love... What the... Are you kidding me? This is just the worst enemy. Who designed this thing? They need to be fired. Runes are grace. Well, rune items are grace. Runes that we acquire from killing enemies, I don't really know how that fits in. Runes aren't grace? Yes, they are. Grace that dwells within the inhabitants of the lands between. It's very explicit. So the rune items are. But everything that you kill, you acquire runes from. Even things which are said to be, you know, outside of the Erd Tree's grace. So who knows exactly how that fits in. Where's that? A lion, perhaps? Little fountains. This is called a well. I wonder if there's something about, like, going down to collect water, bringing it up, or some kind of ritual, like baptismal ritual or something. Same architectural design details as the mausoleums. Yeah. It's a well. It's about collecting water. Yeah, and I wanted to go up, not down. Yeah, I think this will be a good place to continue next time. We'll go through the Ancient Dynasty and is apparently the slowest elevator in the game. Yeah, they want you to they want that moment where you go, "Oh my god, we're still going down." It's very cool. Compare it to the one that goes to Moonlight Altar, which I think is probably the fastest. We go from the deepest point in the map to the highest point. Yeah, I think we'll continue from here. And then that basically covers most of Limgrave. There's a couple little things. I do want to do Stranded Graveyard. Fight Agil. I'll probably do the Catacombs and Patches off stream. Maybe fight Henricus off stream. Might want to look at the Bell-Bearing Hunter and the Deathbird. Darrowil. Grab the club. What else? That's pretty much everything. I guess there's the Alexander thing, but I don't know if that's worth it, really. And then onwards to Liurnia. Yeah, okay, pretty good, pretty good. Alright, thanks for stopping by, everyone. Appreciate y'all being here, and I appreciate all the comments. So, until next time.